He said she didn't belong in that office, didn't dress like them, didn't talk like them, didn't go to happy hour, didn't laugh at his jokes, didn't stay late just to prove loyalty. But what he didn't know is that she had spent her whole life opening doors no one else dared to open, doors held shut by poverty, by a missing father, by a system that labeled her daughter as a burden the moment she was born. Her name was Tasha Monroe, a mother first, a real estate assistant second. And every morning started the same, getting her daughter Lila dressed through tears and stiffness, warming breakfast one-handed while untangling leg braces with the other, smiling at a child the world barely noticed, but who was her whole world. Tasha didn't have the luxury of being late, but she was, every day by 7 to 12 minutes. And every day Mr. Palmer, the regional manager with perfect ties and a god complex, would check his Rolex and sigh, loud enough for the whole floor to hear. What he never saw was the morning Lila had a seizure, or the night she cried herself to sleep because she couldn't button her school uniform alone. Tasha made her proudest sale 2 weeks after the divorce, closed a house while her daughter was still in post-op recovery. She had no nanny, no family backup, just grit, and a phone that never left her side. Still, Mr. Palmer said she wasn't leadership material, that she lacked commitment, that she used her daughter as an excuse. And on the day he fired her, he didn't even look her in the eye, just slid a manila envelope across her desk. Cold, final. She didn't cry. She stood up, adjusted her thrift store blazer, and walked out like a woman who'd been through worse. Because she had, but what she found taped to her windshield in the parking lot would leave her breathless. If you've ever had to work twice as hard just to be called half as good, take a moment for yourself. This story might be closer to yours than you think. It wasn't a ticket, wasn't a warning, wasn't some cruel memo from HR. It was a drawing, crayoned and crooked, but unmistakable. 2 stick figures, one tall, with curly hair like hers, one in a wheelchair, smiling wide. Above them, 3 words in shaky pink letters. My hero, Mom. Tasha clutched it like oxygen, felt her knees go weak in the summer heat. She had told Lila just that morning, I'm gonna try to come home early today, okay? And Lila had whispered, I know you will. You're magic. But now, jobless. She wasn't sure what she was anymore. She drove home in silence, wipers brushing away a sky that couldn't decide if it wanted to cry. At home, Lila was coloring at the kitchen table, braces off, socks mismatched, but eyes glowing. Did you see it? She beamed. I wanted you to feel better if today was bad. Tasha couldn't speak, just nodded and knelt beside her. That night, after dinner and meds and kisses, Tasha sat in the dark with the envelope on her lap. Inside, her final paycheck. It was $173 short. No explanation, no breakdown, just silence. She called HR. Voicemail, she emailed payroll. No reply. And the next morning, her phone buzzed with a message from Kendra, the janitor who always smiled at her. It was just one sentence, but it would change everything. You should check what's in Palmer's drawer. She hadn't stepped back into that office since he fired her. Didn't plan to. But the message from Kendra lingered in her mind all night. You should check what's in Palmer's drawer. At 6:47 a.m., Tasha pulled into the parking garage. Same spot, same tired concrete, but this time she wasn't an employee, she was something else. She wore her old ID badge, hoping no one would question her. Most folks weren't even in yet. The early sales team nodded without thinking. Inside, the office smelled like cleaning fluid and recycled ambition. She walked quietly past her old cubicle, still had her coffee mug there, still had the framed drawing of Lila. Palmer's door was closed, but unlocked. Typical. He always believed no one would dare. But Tasha dared. The drawer didn't open, locked. She hesitated, then checked the top shelf of the bookcase, exactly where he used to hide his keys during performance reviews. Same spot, same key. The drawer creaked. Inside, 2 manila folders, a thick envelope and a notepad with her name on it. The first folder had employee files, all women, all mothers, all terminated for cause. The second folder had HR complaint letters, half of them signed and ignored. One from her, never filed, but the envelope, that's where her breath caught. Inside were 3 client commission checks, all signed, all dated months ago, all under her name. But the amounts were scratched out and rewritten, smaller. The missing 173 was nothing. He'd stolen thousands and kept the originals as insurance. Tasha dropped the papers. The rage rose in her throat like fire, but the click of the door behind her stopped her cold. Tasha turned slowly. It wasn't Palmer. It was Kendra, mop in hand, eyes sharp. "I figured you'd come," she said, locking the door behind her. "I waited till security started rounds." Tasha held up the envelope. "He's been stealing my money." Kendra nodded. "Yours, and more. That drawer? I've been watching him open it every Friday like clockwork. You knew." "I suspected, but folks like me, we don't get believed. We just clean the floors under the dirt they leave behind." Tasha looked down at the files again. Victims, mothers, all discarded and blamed. "This is enough to bury him," she whispered. Kendra tilted her head. "You ready to do that?" Tasha wasn't sure. She was tired, broke, trying to protect a child who needed her whole heart. But as she stared at those stolen checks, she thought of the time Lila asked her, "Why do bad people get to boss good people around?" And she'd said something she wasn't sure she believed, because sometimes the good people don't fight back, but we can. Now she had a choice. Kendra reached into her cart and handed her something wrapped in a blue cloth. "I think you should have this," she said softly. Inside was a flash drive. "I seen him plug it into the conference laptop during evaluations. I copied it." Tasha looked up. "What's on it?" Kendra's voice dropped. "Recordings of him." The weight of that flash drive in her hand felt heavier than it looked. It wasn't just plastic and data. It was proof of the silencing, of the stealing, of the way a man like Palmer could walk into work every day, smile at the receptionist, and destroy a woman's life before lunch. Tasha turned it over in her fingers, the cool metal pressing into her palm. "What exactly is on here?" she asked again, her voice just above a whisper. Kendra leaned against the desk, her mop forgotten. "I don't know everything, but I heard enough, Tasha. He records every performance review, keeps them on file for legal backup, he says." Tasha remembered hers. The review where he said, "You're good with people, Tasha, but you're not executive material. You know what I mean, right?" He'd smiled when he said it, like a compliment laced with poison. She never knew he recorded it. Kendra nodded at the drive. "Plug it in, you'll see." Tasha hesitated. Then she pulled out her old work laptop from her tote bag. She'd taken it home the day she was fired. Palmer had told her to leave it. She'd forgotten, or maybe refused. She inserted the drive. 5 folders appeared, each one labeled with a month. Inside, dozens of audio files, meetings, reviews, calls. She clicked one. "Tasha Monroe, Q2 eval.mp3. Palmer's voice oozed through the speakers. "Look, you've had a hard year. We all sympathize. But real estate's not a charity. We need team players who show up when it counts. You leaving early for personal matters, that sends the wrong message. Your numbers are slipping. I could have given that last lead to Kyle, but I gave it to you because I believe in second chances." Tasha's own voice replied, calm but strained. "My daughter had a medical emergency. I closed that lead same day. That's not the point. We can't run a business based on your schedule. And let's be honest, motherhood isn't a performance metric." Kendra flinched. "That's it. That's the line." Tasha felt her stomach twist, but she clicked another file. This one, not hers. "Palmer, briefing with execs, MP3. And this time, he wasn't even pretending. Yeah, we let her go. She was milking the kid thing, kept pulling the sympathy card. Frankly, I'm amazed she lasted this long. I mean, who hires a single mom with a disabled kid for sales?" Laughter. "I just told HR she wasn't delivering. They'll sign anything I put on their desk." Tasha slammed the laptop shut. Her hands were trembling. "That son of a—" She stopped herself, looked over at Kendra. How long have you been holding this? 3 months. Why didn't you go to someone? Kendra shrugged. I clean toilets. Who would listen to me? Tasha breathed deep. Maybe it's time. Someone does. She left the office quietly, the flash drive in her pocket. As she stepped into the rising morning heat, something inside her had changed. The shame was no longer hers to carry. That night, she stayed up researching legal aid, whistleblower protections, wrongful termination laws in the state of Texas. She posted anonymously in a support group for single mothers in corporate jobs. Within the hour, 3 women DM'd her. One had also worked under Palmer. One had filed a complaint that disappeared. One had lost custody after being fired for performance issues. Each story different, each pain the same. Tasha's fingers hovered over the keyboard, and then she typed 4 words. I have the tapes. That was the moment the fear broke. The next day, she emailed the audio files and scanned checks to a legal defense fund for working mothers. She didn't expect much. But by sunset, her phone rang. A lawyer picked up. Tasha Monroe, my name's Layla Grant. I'm with Women's Justice Group. I heard what they did to you. I want to help you blow the damn door open. Tasha didn't cry, but her voice cracked when she said, Then let's open it. The thing about justice is that it doesn't always arrive with noise. Sometimes it begins in whispers, in email threads sent at dawn, in scanned documents uploaded from a kitchen table sticky with syrup and crayons, in a woman's voice, tired but steady, finally saying, No, you don't get to do this to me. Layla Grant didn't waste time. She called Tasha the next morning and outlined the first steps. File a formal complaint with the State Labor Board. Send a demand letter for unpaid commissions and damages. Secure sworn statements from other victims. Don't worry about cost, she said. We're covering it. This is what we do. Tasha didn't know what stunned her more, that someone believed her, or that someone cared enough to fight. But this wasn't just about her anymore. She texted Kendra first. Then, the 3 women who had messaged her online. One by one, the stories poured out, each with dates, documents, names, receipts. Palmer's entire pattern began to take shape like a map, and every road led back to him. One mother described how he docked her pay for excessive breaks when she was pumping breast milk. Another had been told she was too emotional after returning from maternity leave. One had been offered a demotion with the phrase, At least this way, you'll have more time to be a mom. They were tired, embarrassed, ashamed. But when they spoke to Tasha, they felt something they hadn't felt in a long time, safe. And then, one of them forwarded an email from Palmer, dated a year ago. Subject, Keep this between us. Inside was a thread between him and an HR director. He was giving instructions on how to phrase terminations to avoid legal backlash from the mommy brigade. He even laughed at the idea of disabled children being used as shields. Tasha stared at that line for 10 full minutes. Then she forwarded it to Layla with no subject line. Later that night, as she tucked Lila into bed, the little girl pulled her close. Mommy, she said, you smell like paper and coffee. Tasha laughed. Well, baby, that's the smell of justice brewing. But in her heart, she didn't feel brave. She felt scared, exhausted, and too aware of how easily this could all fall apart. But then Lila whispered, I'm glad you're home more. I like when you pick me up. Tasha kissed her forehead and realized Palmer hadn't taken everything. Some things he never had power over. But the next morning, as she opened her inbox, there it was, an email from Palmer. Subject, enough. And the first line, I know what you're trying to do. Stop now, or you'll regret it. Threats are funny things. Some are loud, slam doors, raised voices. Others whisper, hide behind words like regret. Palmer's email didn't shout. It was worse than that. It was controlled, calculated. The kind of message a man sends when he's spent a lifetime getting away with it. I know what you're trying to do. I've been more than patient with you, Tasha. But if you continue down this path, you'll only be making things worse, for yourself and for your daughter. Tasha stared at the screen. He didn't say Lila's name, but he didn't need to. The implication was clear. Palmer was done pretending, and now he was threatening what mattered most. She forwarded the message to Layla immediately. The lawyer called within minutes. "That's retaliation," she said. "Direct and illegal. We'll use it." But all Tasha could think about was Lila. What if Palmer knew where they lived? What if he used his connections to report her for something? Anything. He had money. He had friends. She had... what? An old Toyota. A child. A handful of voices still finding their courage. Layla sensed the hesitation in her silence. "You're not alone, Tasha. He's betting on fear. Don't give him what he wants." Tasha nodded, even though Layla couldn't see her. But that night, she double-checked every lock, slept with her phone on the pillow. And when she dreamed, it was of keys, a ring of them, heavy and rusty, none of them opening the door she needed. The next morning, the story broke. A local reporter, young, hungry, and underestimated like Tasha once was, published a headline that caught fire in hours. "Fired for being a mother. Former employee exposes pattern of abuse inside real estate giant." The article included quotes from 3 women. Tasha's name wasn't there. Not yet. But the audio clips were included. And one featured Palmer's voice saying, "You hire a woman like Tasha, you deal with the baggage. It's not my job to subsidize motherhood." The backlash was immediate. The company's social media pages flooded with comments, women sharing their own stories, clients withdrawing listings. By noon, corporate had released a statement. "These claims are being taken seriously and investigated internally." But Tasha knew what that meant. Delay, deny, discredit. That afternoon, her phone rang again. Not Layla this time, not Kendra, but someone she hadn't expected. An executive from corporate, a woman. Her voice was tight, official. "Ms. Monroe, I'd like to schedule a time to talk, off the record. Some of us didn't know what was happening in that region. I'd like to hear it directly from you." Tasha paused, looked out the window. Lila was in the backyard, chalking suns and hearts onto the pavement, and just behind her, a man in a suit, standing across the street, watching, not moving. He didn't knock, didn't say a word, just stood there, grey suit, sunglasses, clipboard in hand, like he belonged in some official capacity, yet out of place in the July heat. Tasha pulled the curtain slowly, her heart hammered. She called Lila inside without raising her voice, just opened the back door and said, "Sweetheart, come help Mommy with dinner." Lila came running, chalk-stained and smiling. She didn't see the man, but Tasha kept glancing out the window, one hand on her daughter's shoulder, the other clutching her phone. The man didn't stay long, 6 minutes, maybe 7. Then he turned, walked to a black car parked a block down, and disappeared. That night, Tasha couldn't sleep. Every creak in the house sounded louder, every shadow longer. She called Layla the next morning. "I think someone came by the house." Layla didn't hesitate. "I'm sending a security consultant, former detective. We've worked with him before." Tasha opened her mouth to protest, to say she didn't need help or couldn't afford it. But Layla cut her off. "Don't worry about the cost. We're invested, Tasha. This isn't just about one man anymore. It's about the system that let him grow roots." By afternoon, the consultant arrived. His name was Marcus. Quiet, black, mid-40s. He didn't ask a lot of questions, just checked windows, locks, cameras. "You were right to call," he said. "I can't say who he was." "But he wasn't just passing by." "Palmer?" Tasha asked. Marcus gave a non-committal shrug. Could be. Could be someone covering for him. Or trying to intimidate. He handed her a number. "Anything happens, call me, day or night. And don't answer your door unless you know who it is." Tasha nodded, gripping the card like it was a lifeline. She didn't want to live like this. Not with Lila in the house. Not with fear shadowing every window. But even as her stomach twisted, she knew one thing. Palmer was scared, because if he wasn't, he wouldn't be watching. Later that week, corporate called again. Same executive woman, more urgent this time. "We're moving forward with our internal investigation. But there's resistance. Palmer has powerful allies." Tasha exhaled sharply. Of course he did. The kind of men who slap each other on the back in boardrooms, who say words like integrity while stealing in silence. The executive lowered her voice. I believe you, Ms. Monroe, but I need more than clips. I need a full story. Would you be willing to go on record? Tasha hesitated, because on the other side of that yes was exposure. Her name in headlines, her face online, her daughter's life dragged into light. But then she remembered the drawing on her windshield, the pink letters that said, "My hero mom." And she said, yes, but on one condition. What's that? You protect every woman who speaks up with me. Silence then. You have my word. Tasha hung up, walked to the bedroom, and found Lila asleep, one hand curled around a crayon. The drawing she'd made today was of a door, a tall one, closed, but her mother stood in front of it, holding a giant key. She hadn't worn makeup in weeks, didn't have the energy, but that morning, before the camera crew arrived, Tasha stood in front of the mirror with a trembling brush, not to look polished, but to feel armored, because today wasn't just another interview. It was a recorded statement, an official account. The moment her voice would be preserved, unedited, undeniable. When the reporter arrived, she was young, nervous, but respectful. This is off the record until you approve the final version, she said. Tasha appreciated that. Most days, women like her didn't get approval. They got blamed. The living room was dim, curtains drawn, camera light glowing. Lila was at a neighbor's for the afternoon, Mrs. Green, a widow who baked too much and asked too little. As the mic was clipped to her collar, Tasha closed her eyes, remembered all the moments she'd stayed quiet to keep a job, all the comments she'd swallowed, the overtime she was never paid, the missed appointments, the panic attacks in bathroom stalls. Ready? The reporter asked gently. Tasha nodded once and began. My name is Tasha Monroe. I'm a mother. I'm a former real estate assistant. And I was fired, not for failing my job, but for refusing to fail my child. She spoke for 47 minutes. No script, no tears, just truth. She told them about Palmer's sarcasm, his long glances at her chest during meetings, the way he mocked her when she wore flat shoes. Real executive material now, he'd smirk. She described her daughter's therapy schedule, the missed income, the time she asked to leave an hour early for a hospital appointment, and Palmer said, you really ought to get better at separating work from your personal drama. She played them the audio. The reporter's hands shook slightly when she paused the clip. They filmed every word. And when it was over, Tasha stood up. Not taller, not stronger, just clearer. That night, after Lila was asleep, Tasha received a text from a number she didn't recognize. We're watching. Hope your daughter sleeps well tonight. She didn't show it to anyone, not even Marcus. She didn't want fear to win. Instead, she went to her closet, pulled down the shoebox from the top shelf. Inside was a letter, never sent, to her ex, the man who walked out when Lila's diagnosis became too real. She tore it up. Then she pulled out an old key, silver, worn, the key to her childhood home in Galveston, long since sold. But something about it still calmed her. She held it that night, tucked beneath her pillow, like a weapon against the dark. The next morning it happened, an emergency board meeting. Palmer removed from his position, pending investigation. The company released a new statement, committed to creating a workplace free from discrimination, especially for working mothers and caregivers. They didn't say her name, but everyone knew. And the reporter? She sent Tasha a private message. Your story changed company policy. They're starting an internal audit of all regional branches. I thought you should know. But what made Tasha cry, what made her truly weep, was what Lila said that night, out of nowhere. You opened the scary door, Mommy. You weren't even scared. Tasha kissed her daughter's forehead, didn't say she had been scared, didn't say she still was. Because sometimes bravery isn't about not feeling fear. It's about turning the key anyway. The silence came first. Not applause, not relief. Just silence. The kind that comes when you expect the world to cheer, but all you hear are the echoes of your own heartbeat. After the announcement, People at the old office started reaching out. Some sent quiet messages of support. I always thought something was off. Good for you, girl, took guts. But others? Well, one woman, Marcy, someone Tasha used to eat lunch with, wrote, "I wish you hadn't gone public. You made us all look bad." Another, "Not everyone can afford to burn bridges. Some of us still have to work here." It stung, because she had once thought they were friends, the kind who lent extra pens, saved her a seat in meetings, laughed at Palmer's jokes, sure, but so did everyone. Tasha closed her inbox, deleted the messages without replying, but that night, while folding Lila's laundry, a question slipped from the back of her mind to her lips. Was I wrong? Because justice is lonely. The headlines moved on, the news cycle shifted, and while Palmer was gone, the culture remained. A week later, Tasha was invited to speak at a conference in Austin, hosted by a non-profit that supported working mothers and caregivers. She hesitated. She didn't think of herself as a speaker, didn't want to be a symbol. She just wanted her paycheck, her dignity, and her daughter safe. But then she remembered she had already paid the price. Might as well cash in the truth, so she said yes. The room was small, maybe 60 chairs. Mostly women, some older, some young, all with tired eyes. Tasha stood at the front with a microphone that shook in her hand. But when she looked out at them, mothers, nurses, secretaries, janitors, paralegals, she saw her reflection multiplied. So she began. She told them about real estate, about the commission checks that went missing, about being called dramatic, about Lila. She paused only once, right before she said Palmer's name. And that's when a woman in the third row whispered, "I worked under him too." Tasha met her eyes and kept going. After the talk, women lined up to hug her, not shake her hand. Hug her. One whispered, "I've never told anyone what happened to me." Another said, "I thought I was crazy. I thought I was the problem." Tasha realized something then. Justice wasn't just a courtroom. It was a conversation, a confession, a moment where silence broke. But the biggest surprise came the next day. A voicemail from Palmer's former assistant. She sounded nervous, voice thin. "Ms. Monroe, I don't know if I should be calling, but I found something in my drawer. It's a hard drive. I think it's his. It's got names, numbers, emails, even a payment to an HR official. I don't want to be involved, but I also can't sleep at night." Tasha sat frozen. The web was wider than she thought. And this hard drive might be the final lock. But the next morning, before she could reply, she got another message from a blocked number. No words, just a video, grainy, dark. It showed a woman stepping out of a car, Tasha, and then someone whispering behind the camera, "Let's see how loud she screams when we take something she loves." She didn't scream, she didn't panic. Tasha just stopped moving, stopped breathing, stopped being in her body for a moment as that video played again on her screen, her car, her face, her front steps, and that voice, not loud, not angry, but deliberate, cold, like someone playing chess with her life. She looked toward Lila's room. Her daughter was still sleeping, curled under a blanket full of stars. She turned off the phone, sat on the floor, and wept. But not for herself. For every time she'd told her daughter the world was good, that people were fair, that if you told the truth, things got better. Now she wasn't sure, because she'd told the truth, and things were getting dangerous. She called Marcus. He didn't ask what happened. He just said, "I'm on my way." 25 minutes later, he was at the door with another man, taller, quiet, ex-military. They swept the house, checked the cameras. "Video was taken from less than 40 feet, Marcus said. "Someone's been close, watching." "Why?" Tasha whispered. "Why go this far?" Marcus looked her dead in the eye. "Because you didn't stay quiet, and now you're not alone." He handed her a burner phone. "Use this. Your old one might be compromised." He paused at the door. "And Tasha, don't disappear. That's what they want. You're louder now than you've ever been." Later that day, Tasha sent a message to Layla. "I'm not backing down, but I'm done playing defense." Layla called immediately. "Then we go public." They planned a live stream, a joint statement. Layla, the other women, even the executive who'd first reached out. And Tasha would speak first. "I'm not polished," she warned. "That's why they'll listen," Layla said. The live stream was viewed 187,000 times in the first hour. Tasha appeared in a plain black blouse. No makeup, no flash, just fire. "They told me I was a distraction. They told me motherhood was a weakness. They told me to stay quiet, take the check and move on." She looked straight into the camera. "But I have a daughter who watches everything I do, and if I stay quiet, I teach her that fear wins. I refuse." The feed cut to Layla, then to statements from other women, names, dates, policies broken, payments made. One document leaked, an internal email from Palmer to a board member, dated 2 years prior. "As long as these women need the job, we can control them." By nightfall, national news had picked up the story. The Keys Without Doors was trending, and for the first time, Tasha received a message from someone she never expected. Her ex-husband, a man who hadn't called since Lila's diagnosis. All it said was, "Saw the video. I'm sorry for not being stronger back then. You were always stronger than me." She didn't reply. She didn't need to. Some doors don't deserve reopening. But another message followed, from the assistant who had Palmer's hard drive. This time, she wasn't scared. She wrote, "I'm ready. I'll bring it in person. But you need to see what's in the last folder." He didn't just ruin careers, he covered something bigger. That night, Tasha sat with the key from her old house in her palm again, because something deep in her gut told her. The door she was about to open was darker than she'd ever imagined. She arrived in a navy hoodie, glasses, and shaking hands. Her name was Adrienne, Palmer's former assistant. She looked nothing like the calm, capable woman Tasha remembered typing notes during meetings. Now she seemed smaller, worn. They met in the back booth of a quiet cafe in South Dallas. Marcus sat nearby, watching the door. No words were wasted. Adrienne pulled the hard drive from her purse like it was a loaded weapon. Her hands didn't stop trembling. "This has everything," she said. "Emails, internal reports, deleted documents. I didn't know what I was copying at first. I just saved what I could." Tasha nodded. She tried to smile to reassure her, but Adrienne's face darkened. "There's one folder you need to see right now. It's bad, Tasha. Worse than what they did to you, worse than commissions." She slid a paper across the table, a printed screen grab. Folder name, Winterbird password protected. Inside, according to Adrienne, were confidential reports, not just about firings, but settlements, payouts, silenced complaints. Women who had accused Palmer of harassment, women who had tried to go to the press, women who disappeared from the system. Adrienne whispered, "There's one from a temp named Vanessa. She reported him 3 years ago, wrote a full statement, but it never reached HR. And now," she swallowed hard, "there's no trace of her in the employee system, like she never existed." Back home, Tasha and Layla worked side by side at the kitchen table, the hard drive connected to a locked laptop. They cracked the password that night. Adrienne remembered Palmer's dog's name and the year of his first bonus. Typical ego move. The folder opened, and what they found froze the air. 15 PDFs, each one labeled with a woman's name and a dollar amount, settlement letters, NDAs, and attached to each a warning label, "Do not distribute, by legal order." Most were under $20,000. Cheap silence, but the details, God. One woman was asked to prove she hadn't invited Palmer's advances by submitting screenshots of her wardrobe purchases. Another had her family threatened with job loss. One reported being followed after she refused a dinner meeting. And Vanessa? Her file was only 2 pages. Complainant unstable, no formal investigation necessary. Recommend quiet termination, no follow-up required. Tasha couldn't breathe. No phone number, no forwarding address, no last paycheck record. Just a woman lost in the cracks like so many others. Layla sat back, eyes wide. "This isn't just wrongful termination anymore," she said slowly. "This is criminal obstruction. This is corporate cover-up." And then she asked the question Tasha had been dreading. "Are you willing to go to court?" Tasha stared at her hands. at her chipped nail polish, at the callus forming on her ring finger from holding Lila's wheelchair too tight. "I'm not willing," she said softly. "I'm ready." The case escalated in days. A federal investigation was opened. An anonymous whistleblower hotline was launched. 2 board members resigned overnight. Palmer, he went dark. No posts, no appearances. His lawyer issued a vague denial but refused interviews. Still, the women kept coming, one by one, older, younger, black, white, Latina, some still in the company, some fired years ago. All of them had one thing in common. They'd been told they were too much, too loud, too complicated, too maternal. And each one said the same when they heard Tasha's name: "She's the reason I'm speaking now." But even in the middle of a storm, real life doesn't stop. One night, Tasha was giving Lila a bath when her daughter looked up with curious eyes. "Are you fighting the bad man still?" Tasha nodded. "Is he scared of you?" Tasha paused and said the truth. "I think he's scared of what happens when women stop being scared of him." Lila smiled, then whispered, "That's like a superhero." And for the first time in weeks, Tasha laughed, not because the danger was gone, but because she knew she wasn't alone in the fight anymore. But the next day, Layla received an envelope with no return address. Inside, a photograph of Vanessa, dated 2 weeks ago. The photo was worn, creased down the middle, like it had been folded and unfolded too many times. Grainy, yes, but clear enough to see the eyes. Eyes Tasha would never forget. It was Vanessa, hair shorter now, thinner, standing outside what looked like a nursing home or recovery center. Alone. The back of the photo had no message, just a number. 7 digits, written in black ink. No area code, no name, just a quiet dare. Layla stared at the image like it was a ghost. "She was supposed to be gone," she whispered. "Erased. That's what everyone believed." Tasha's voice was low. "She's not gone. She was never gone. She was just silenced." They traced the number to a care facility 2 hours outside Houston. Private, not state-funded, mostly used for women with long-term trauma cases or mental health recovery. Layla made the call. Asked if Vanessa had been admitted in the last 3 years. The woman on the phone hesitated, then said, "She doesn't take visitors. Hasn't spoken in almost 2 years." Tasha was already packing a bag. She didn't know what she would say, didn't know if Vanessa would even see her, but she knew this. The system only wins when we stop reaching for the ones it swallows. The road to the facility was lined with pine trees, the kind that whisper when the wind passes. Lila was with Mrs. Green again, safe, singing, waiting. As they pulled into the gravel lot, the air felt thick, not with fear, but with truth not yet spoken. The nurse led Tasha and Layla down a long hallway, soft floors, soft lights. "She doesn't talk," the nurse said quietly, "but she draws, every day, always the same thing." They reached the door. Room 117. The nurse knocked, waited, opened it slowly. Vanessa sat near the window, blanket around her shoulders, sketchpad in her lap. She didn't look up. Tasha stepped inside, heart pounding, and then she saw the drawing. A woman, standing in front of a tall door, same as Lila's drawing, but this one was chained shut, and beneath it, scribbled in pencil. She tried to open it. They took her voice. Tasha dropped to her knees beside the chair. "Vanessa," she whispered, "my name is Tasha. I worked where you worked. I know what he did." Still no response. But Vanessa's hand paused mid-stroke. Tasha kept going. "You weren't crazy. You weren't dramatic. You were right, and I'm here now because of you." Vanessa's fingers began to tremble. A single tear slipped down her cheek, and then, just above a whisper, she said the first word she'd spoken in years. "Door." Tasha clutched her hand, and together in that quiet room, something shifted. Not in policy, not in court, but in spirit, because justice isn't just about punishment. It's about finding the ones left behind and reminding them they still exist. They drove back in silence, but something sat heavier on Tasha's chest. Not fear, not sadness, resolve. Because if Vanessa had survived, then there were others. And she wasn't finished until every voice buried under silence stood again. The next morning, Layla received an encrypted email from a blocked source. Attached was a recording. Palmer, on the phone, laughing. She can scream all she wants. Let her drag my name through the dirt. I've got the kind of money that cleans up everything. Udim, but that wasn't the part that shook Tasha. It was the voice on the other end of the line, the HR director, the one who signed her termination. And she said, "Just send it to her lawyer. She'll settle. They always do." Tasha pressed pause, then whispered, "Not this time." It came in a sleek envelope. No return address, no signature, just a man in a blazer, sent by a law firm known for making problems disappear. He didn't make eye contact, didn't ask for water, just placed the envelope on the table and said, "My client would prefer to settle this quietly. 7 figures, no further media, full NDA, everything disappears." Tasha didn't touch the paper, didn't even flinch, because she knew this wasn't generosity. It was hush money, and the price tag wasn't based on her pain, it was based on his fear. She asked one question: "Does Vanessa get a piece of this?" The man blinked. "I'm not at liberty." Tasha cut him off. "Then we're done." He left the envelope, left the room, left the house, but not the pressure. That night, she sat at the table with Layla, Kendra, Adrian, and a new name, Jordan, a single father, former project manager, also fired under Palmer's regime for requesting extended leave to care for his terminal mother. They were no longer victims, they were a coalition. Tasha laid the envelope on the table. 7 figures, she said. "To stay quiet," Kendra snorted. "They think that's going to fix it?" Adrian said nothing, but her eyes, those tired, guilty eyes, were clear for the first time. And Layla, she leaned forward, voice calm. "Tasha, this is your choice. No judgment. You've fought hard." But Tasha shook her head. "No. If I take it, what happens to the ones who come after me? To the next single mom? The next Vanessa?" No one spoke, so she stood up, took the envelope, walked to the sink, and dropped it straight into the water. The ink bled instantly. The words dissolved, and with it, the weight of her silence. The news broke again the next week. Real estate giant faces class action lawsuit after refusing settlement. This time, Tasha's name was front and center, not as a plaintiff, not as a victim, but as a leader. She was invited to testify before a state labor committee, asked to consult on a new bill focused on caregiver protections in the workplace. Her story became part of HR training in 5 national firms. But more than any of that, she walked Lila to school every morning, not hiding, not afraid. And one crisp Thursday, Lila slipped her a folded paper at the gate. Inside, a drawing of a key and a note that read, "You didn't just open a door, Mommy. You made a new one. For me, for everybody." Tasha folded it slowly, held it to her chest, because now, the door she'd spent her life fighting to open was open, and she was standing on the other side. Free, she stood on a stage. No lights, no cameras, just a small auditorium at a local college, folding chairs, mismatched shoes, mothers, daughters, a few grandmothers even, women who had lost jobs, women who had lost hope, and women who had found something in her voice that felt like their own. Tasha wasn't there to speak as an expert. She was there as proof that the world doesn't hand justice to women like her, that you have to wrestle it, bleeding, crying, with your child in one arm and your story in the other. She told them everything about Palmer, about the missing money, the flash drive, the video, the offer she didn't take. But more than that, she told them about Vanessa, about the folder called Winterbird, about the silence women were forced to carry like bricks in their purse. She said, "They told me I had to choose, be a good mother or a good employee. But I was already both. They just didn't want to see it. They fired me thinking they'd closed a door. But they forgot something. I carry keys too." After the talk, a girl no older than 19 came up to her, skinny, nervous, maybe working 2 jobs, maybe none. She said, "I'm not a mom yet, but my mom is you. She just never had the chance to fight back." Tasha hugged her tightly, because maybe that's all this fight was about, making sure someone else wouldn't have to fight it alone. Months passed. The company restructured. Palmer, he lost his license, faced charges for corporate fraud and obstruction, settled in civil court with every woman named in the class action. He lives quiet now, out of sight, out of power. Vanessa, she's in counseling, drawing again, living in a small shared apartment with two other women from the center. She sends Tasha letters every other week. Each one ends with, "Still finding my voice, thank you for using yours." And Tasha? She didn't go back to the real estate firm. She opened her own, a small agency. One employee to start, Kendra at the front desk, childcare built into the office schedule. She called it Keys Without Doors. Her slogan, "We don't knock, we build." One evening, as she locked the office, Lila skipped beside her, now taller, still with braces, still with that fire in her eyes. "Did you ever think," Lila asked, "that maybe God made me need extra help, so you'd find your fight?" Tasha smiled. "I think God made you perfect, and the world needed a reason to see that." Lila reached into her backpack, pulled out a small clay sculpture, a door, but the door had no lock, just a handprint pressed into the clay, where a keyhole might have been. Tasha ran her thumb over it. Soft, warm, open. Lila said, "It only opens for the right hands." Tasha whispered, "Exactly, because she used to think she worked for a man who held all the keys, but now she knew she was the key the whole time, and the door, it was always hers to open." If this story reminded you of your own, let it breathe in the comments, let it stand, let it be seen, because sometimes, my dear, the door ain't locked. We just need the right key and the courage to turn it.